Welcome to Windy Night Stories. Tonight's story is by Thomas Burke, Miracle in Suburbia. In a back room of one of the many old houses still left along London's southern riverside, an elderly gentleman and a youth sat at a table and looked at each other. The man had a bird profile and a probing eye, and the hands that were clasped on the table were large and thin and white. The youth had no profile, and his hands were neither thin nor white, but large and red. They appeared to worry him. Once or twice he put them on the table, in imitation of the man's easy pose. Then he seemed to see them in comparison with the man's, and hid them. From time to time, as though they were forgetful of their unseemliness, they came again onto the table, clasping and unclasping. The room, too, seemed to worry him. It was an odd room, out of character with that stretch of the riverside. Such a room as the South had never seen there or elsewhere. He had seen museums and their contents. This room contained none of the things he had seen in museums, but it was filled with things that were not everyday furniture, queer things, and it had the feeling of a museum. He could not give names to the things. He knew only that he had never seen them in the British Museum or in South Kensington. Weird-looking things, queer-shaped jars, wooden sticks, circular things, triangular things, yellow papers with all sorts of squiggles on them. He didn't like the looks of them, but his eyes continued to rove about the room and return to them. The man noted his uneasiness. Have a drink? He went to a sideboard and began to get out some bottles. The youth said hastily, "No, thanks. No, thanks. I'm not thirsty." He was not averse from a drink. He liked to drink with his friends, but he did not want to drink in this room with this man. Under his reason, under even his sense, he was aware that he was being warned not to have a drink here, not to stay here. The table warned him. The things hanging on the wall warned him. The window curtains warned him. The very nostrils of the man talking to him warned him. The room seemed to be murmuring with distant drums. All the objects in it were throwing off something that went to the secret corners of his being and said, "Have nothing to do with this place. Get out while you can." But he couldn't be so silly as to make a sudden bolt. Neither the man nor the room had so far afforded any reason for that. He would obey the feeling so far as to refuse a drink. You never knew with drinks, so easy to put something in them. But that urge to get out was probably just nerves. The man seemed quite a nice chap, and he couldn't see anything wrong with the room. There was no danger anywhere. Nobody was threatening him. If the man tried to attack him, that would be different. That'd be a reason for getting out. But a mere feeling was silky, and the feeling that he had about this room was probably due to his not having seen a room like it before. He must fight it down. The man had said that he had a proposal to make, which might be profitable to the youth, and the youth could do with a proposal or two of that sort. He mustn't allow feelings to interfere with business. "Well, if you won't have a drink," the man was saying, "let's get on with our talk. I spoke to you in the coffee shop just now because you looked like a likely lad for the work I want done. A simple piece of work, and I'll pay well. I could do with a job. Been out nearly a year now, tramping about every day looking for something. Can't find anything, though. No? I thought that was the case. Well, now, I just want a little bit of work done, and I'll pay for it what you'd probably have to work half a year in the ordinary way. For this piece of work, which you can do in an hour or two, I'll pay you £50. £50. £50. The youth seemed to try to visualize £50. £50 all at once. The picture, and the effort to produce it, made him frown. He became suspicious. £50? Must be something queer if you'd pay all that. £50? Must be something not right. The man smiled. "I like your recoil. I appreciate it. But you need to have no hesitation on that score. The answers to your remark is, in a sense, yes and no. That is, a little technical point of what is called wrongdoing is involved, but not the kind of technical point that could get you into trouble. Just a matter of," he laughed, "taking something from somebody. But listen." He held up a hand to stop the youth's protest. "Taking something from somebody who stole it. A perfectly honorable proceeding. an act that a dozen men of spotless respectability would be willing to perform if they were young enough and agile enough, and I'm willing to pay £50. Sums of money convey little to me, though I realize that they mean something to others, because I need a young man whom I can trust, a young man to whom £50 would be a symbol of a vow of silence. That is why I picked you. It's like this." He leaned back in his chair and held the youth with his eyes. The youth frowned again in the effort of concentrating on what might be a complicated story. "A very valuable relic has been taken from a museum with which I'm connected. If we make the loss public, we're likely to lose it. It will go abroad. We want no publicity, no scandal. We want simply to get it back. We know who has it and where it is, and a smart young man could get it without any trouble, and would do a service to society, and, further, without any danger to himself whatever." Oh, the youth pondered. It sounded all right, but coming from this particular man, it didn't seem quite as right as it sounded. He was an honest youth, and never would have eased his troubles even by the slightest of crimes. Yet this man's eyes and voice swayed him. It seemed that he was asked to perform a straightforward, but not quite proper, service, and was to be handsomely paid for it and protected from all risk. Well, if it was all right, £50 was £50. Without that handsome reward, he would have said no to the proposal, even if the act was a service to society. He was not a hero, and saw no reason for implicating himself in other people's troubles. On the other hand, if it was not all right, a reward of £1,000 and complete immunity would not have tempted him to common theft. He couldn't quite get this man. His chief feeling was that it wasn't all right, but under this man's eyes he couldn't feel that it was wrong. It seemed to be a private row against public property, and if that was so, his moral sense told him that he would be justified in accepting the job and restoring the thing, whatever it was, to its owners. Still, there were one or two funny points about it. But if it's all right and above board, and as easy as you say, why are you paying all that money for the job? I've told you, £50 probably seems like a lot of money to you, but it's nothing to the historic value of this relic. Anyway, I should not be paying that money for the mere job. I should be pacing it, as I said, for a man's honesty and for his keeping quiet. This matter must not be talked about to anybody. It's a delicate matter. Might lead to trouble with other countries. You understand? That's why I need somebody who knows nothing of the circumstances surrounding this affair, and somebody who will forget it after he has performed his service. Someone who will never mention that service, nor what that object of the service was. Particularly that. No mention of the nature of the relic. I'm not much of a talker at any time. I've observed that on my visits to the coffee shop. But what's this about no trouble and no danger? How can that be? If I'm taking something from another chap, he naturally wouldn't let me. Or what about a copper seeing me do it? Even if you were seen taking it, nobody could harm you. You will be protected. You will approach that man freely, and you will come away freely. I have the power to protect you, and my power will accompany you all the time. Power. You mean some of your people, some of those interested in the thing. The man smiled. I see you don't understand, and perhaps it's as well if you don't. You'll be more efficient for the work. But there are powers other than the powers of hands and limbs. There are powers other than the powers of the brain. There is a power of the spirit. That is the power that will protect you. Sounds all right. So do lots of things. But if you got all this, what you call power, I should think you could get it back easily enough yourself. Just say, presto, come over here, like the conjurers. He giggled. Was this old chap drunk? Him and his talk about taking things from people and being protected by power. I see you don't understand and don't believe. We who have this power may not use it on ourselves. We may use it only through an instrument. Then it is effective, and no harm can come to our instrument. We can place our protective power around him. How do you make that out? Supposing this chap that's got this thing goes for me, and if he does, no harm can come to you. You do not believe, and it is not necessary that you should. But perhaps I can convince you. Look, I am putting my power around you now. I am calling up the power within you, now. He pushed back his chair and stood erect, looking down at the youth. For some seconds they stared at each other. In the moment of his rising, the man's body seemed to fill the room and be bursting from it. The lamp on the mantel-shelf threw its shadows enormously on the wall, and the shadows copied their movements and became a secondary couple engaged in silent, sinister business. The youth was fairly sensible of some disturbance in the air, then some of the change in himself, a feeling of confidence and strength. The first instinct was that the man was putting something over on him. He resented this and wasn't going to have it. He was glad he hadn't had that drink. But with the feeling of confidence, his resentment passed. This was good. This wasn't hypnotism he had heard about. He wasn't this man's dumb servant. He was his equal. He felt that all the things he had often seen himself doing, he could do. That he had abilities which he hadn't even guessed at, but which this man perceived. He felt as though up till now he had been tied up, an inarticulate, ineffectual youth, and that this man had released him. He stretched both hands on the table, no longer ashamed of them, leaned back, and stared at the man. You feel something? Ah. That is my power meeting your power, blending with it and clothing you. You doubted what I said. It is natural that you should. These things are known to few. But now you are doubting your own doubts. My power is over you. You are aware of it. Now I will convince you utterly that if you serve me in this matter, you'll be protected from every kind of harm. See. In one rhythmic movement, the man swung to the wall, tore down from it a naked Turkish sword, whirled it above his head with a long arm, and brought its edge, full swing, down upon the youth's right wrist. The youth said, "Oh, I say. Hurt you?" "No. Give me a start, like. Wasn't expecting you to do that." "Ha! Look at that blade's edge. Feel it. Gee, bloomin' razor." Then he seemed to realize that something odd had happened. His voice rose to a squeak. "Here, but you slashed that across my wrist with all your might. A thing like that had cut through a table, and you—" "I did. Look at your wrist." The youth examined his wrist. "I can't see anything. Not a mark, even." "Of course not. Didn't I tell you that my power was protecting you? Give me one of those logs from that box by the fire." The youth took up an oak log wedge of about 12-inch thickness and placed it on the table. "Now see, my power is not protecting that log, and so—" He made a second swing of the sword and brought it down on the log. The log fell in 2 pieces. The youth stared. "Gee, that sword, as you say, would cut through a table. But it cannot cut through you. Nothing could. Nothing can in any way harm you. Between danger and you stands my power. And so you can do this little business for me, and my colleagues, with no more risk than you would face in walking from here to your home. Does this evidence convince you?" The youth's face was blank. His sense and brain were in effervescence. Well, if blooming miracles is evidence, it was not a miracle, in your sense. It was a fact. What is commonly called a miracle is only a fact of applied knowledge. Now, will you do a little bit of work for us? Well, if it's absolutely straight, yes. But I don't want to be mixed up in any funny stuff. It is absolutely straight. You must take my word for it that you will be protected against all danger. Nobody need be ashamed of performing such a service as this, the recovery of a valuable relic for its owners. Well, what do you want me to do? And what is this thing? The thing. The man lowered his voice, and for a moment seemed to lose the suggestion of bulk. The thing is a porcelain goblet. What? A china jar. A simple china jar, but very old, and of very historic value. You will simply take it from the man and bring it here. Simply take it, and what will he do? He may make some resistance, but no matter what he does, he cannot harm you. I thought I had made that clear. Yes, I see. You mean that there might be a schmoozle, but me being like I am now, his stuff won't come off. Like the sword. That's it, eh? That's it exactly. Don't hardly seem to be able to believe it. More like a dream. Well, you have had proof with the sword, and you will have further proof. Now follow your instructions. At 11:30 tonight, a man will come from a house in Sloane Street and walk along Sloane Square. a short man in spectacles, wearing a fawn overcoat and bowler hat. He will be carrying an attaché case. If he is not carrying a case, the jar will be in his overcoat pocket. He will go through the narrow street by the district station. He will be making for the Pimlico Road. When he is in that narrow street, you will approach him and snatch the case or take the jar from his pocket and bring it here to me. The youth, stirred by this picture of daring doings, giggled. Sounds easy. The man folded his arms and looked at him with cold eyes. It will be easy. The youth got up. You know, I believe it will. You could make a chap believe anything in this room. I don't understand it, but after that sword... Good. I see that you believe, and that you know you can do what I want. Here. He put his hand inside his coat and brought out a bundle of treasury notes. 50, if you count them, I think. The youth stared. Caw, that's a rum joint. Paying me before I've earned it, before I've done the job. You will earn it. I'm passing this over as proof of my good faith. Your good faith will be proved by your performance. But suppose I was to bunk with the bag? You will not bunk with the bag. For one thing, you are not that kind of young man. I know you. Anyway, the bag would not be worth 5 shillings, and the china jar has no commercial value. You could not sell it. But I... For a moment he forgot the youth, and again he seemed to fill the room. I, with that goblet, am lord of all beauty. With the Boole Museum goblet, I am lord of all... Your how much? He recovered himself. I said claiming that goblet is a laudable duty. But suppose I was copped by a motor bus and smashed up? He made a titch of irritation. How many times am I to tell you that so far as this matter is concerned, you are under protection, now and always. You cannot be harmed by anything arising from this matter, neither now nor at any time. I am protecting you. Now are you ready? The youth made but a momentary hesitation. Then, yes, I'll do it. Good. It is now 10:30. You have plenty of time for the journey to Sloane Square. You have your instructions. Make no mistake in them. I shall expect you back soon after 12. He opened the door and led the way into the passage, and so to the front door. The youth walked out with a light step and swinging shoulders. His gaze was direct and his movements sharp. Within the last hour he had developed a profile. He was not aware of this himself. He was aware only that he was feeling fine. Whether this was due to the 50 pounds in his pocket, to the thing he had witnessed in that room, or to something else, he did not know. He was content to feel fine and to go upon his errand. As he went, he chuckled in self-communication. Gee, talk about the age of miracles. If anybody told me I'd have seen a thing like that in these streets. He's a Dr. Caligari, he is. Almost frightens you, seeing a thing like that. And yet it don't. I don't feel that way at all. Going to do a hold-up and get away with it. Still, he says it's right. Only taking something from a thief for them it belongs to. Wonder if it does belong to him. Still, he seems all right. And I made it clear I wouldn't touch it if it wasn't straight. I got a clear conscience on that. And I got me 50 pounds anyway. Better drop that at home on my way, in case there's something sticky about the business and it goes wrong. Then at least he'll have that to help him. But I reckon it'll be all right. He makes you feel everything is all right. At 11:30 he was waiting in the shadow of the Sloane Square District Station. He had been there for 15 minutes, waiting for the half hour with no more trepidation than if he were waiting for a bus. He was wondering no more about this business. He seemed to be outside of it, half asleep. His mind was not interested in it. Even when the man appeared, his pulse remained unchanged. The man appeared at 3 minutes past the half hour. He came to the square from Sloane Street, a small man in spectacles, wearing a fawn overcoat and bowler hat, and carrying an attaché case. He walked softly, his eyes primly fixed on the pavement. He passed the youth without raising his eyes, and turned into the side street. The youth followed, as casually as though he were merely walking that way too. Then, in the middle of the street, where the light was dim, he moved more quickly. A few paces brought him right behind the man. One hand, with a clean flash, grabbed the man's wrist. The other snatched the case. That was easy. What would happen next he did not know, but he turned to make swiftly, without running, for Sloane Square. But it was not to be so easy. Before he had taken 3 paces, the man was upon him. 2 iron arms, unexpected from so slight a man, went around him. He staggered on his heels. One of the arms slid down his arm to reach the case. He closed his fingers over its handle and gave a violent backward kick. It met a shin, and with its impact, there was a moment's easing of the arms. The youth took that moment to slip through the arms downward to the ground. With his free arm, he caught the man behind the knees, and they came down together. Silent, save for their gasping, they rolled on each other across the pavement. The man did not strike him, but fought for the hand that held the case. The youth held to it fiercely, struggling to rise. Then, with a sudden movement from the man, he found himself underneath, lying on his back with his neck against the curb. He made a few sharp struggles to reverse the positions, but within a second or so he saw that they were useless, and his mouth went dry. The dim light had shown the man's hand shooting to his coat. The next moment he saw the hand lifted, and alongside the hand the dim light was caught by the blade of an open razor. The youth's left hand still clutched the case. With his right hand he made a feeble effort to hold the man away, but the man, with his strong left, bent the arm back. The youth saw the razor sweeping down. Instinctively he shut his eyes. He felt the razor slash across his neck. He felt it go deep into each side. He gurgled and was aware of floating away. It was mere muscular movement that caused him to open his eyes, and it was then that he remembered what he had momentarily forgotten, that he was under protection. He opened his eyes to see that the man, half squatting, had drawn back from him and was staring at him, at his neck, with eyes in which was a light of horror. With another instinctive movement, the youth pulled his hand to his neck. His neck was whole, no wound, no pain. The man still held the open razor and looked stupidly at it. It was spotless. Gripping the case, the youth rolled over and got to his feet. The man scrambled up with him and held out a hand. "Here, my case, my case." It was a plea more than a demand. The youth ignored it. He moved away, and the man with the strong arms put out a weak hand to detain him. "My case, my case." Round the corner came a constable. He looked at their dusty clothes and torn collars. "What's all this? What's this?" The youth answered him. "It's all right, just a private dust-up. We're moving on now." "Do it, then." The man tried to say something. He, and seemed unable to find further words. What did he do? He, now come on, pack up and get home. And take more water with it. The youth said, "All right," and went easily towards Sloane Square with the case. Behind him he heard the little man saying, "No, but he, and the constable saying, "Come on now, take a walk." He saw the constable wave the little man toward Pimlico Road, and he saw the little man tamely go. On the platform of the district station he waited for an eastbound train. 4 times while waiting he said, "Gee," not in a mood of chuckling, but in a mood of awe. He felt a little sick, not because he had been wounded, but because he hadn't been wounded. Half an hour later he delivered the case to the old man and went home. He got into bed with a blunt prayer. Gee. For the next week life was good to him. Out of his vast store of £50, he used half-crowns and 5 shillings at a time, presenting them to his mother as wages he had received from odd jobs. He took in delicacies for her tea. He bought his young sister a needed pair of boots. He saw prosperity ahead. Before it was exhausted, he would certainly get a job. One bit of luck always led to another. Or with that capital, he might start a little business. Or with 10 or 15 pounds of it, might be able to go into partnership with a stallholder. Anyway, he was on his feet again, and all through meeting that, he almost thought of him as that old bonehead, a name which he and his friend Fred had used when discussing the old man in the coffee shop. But after what had happened, he couldn't use that term. He was a little afraid. It would be like mocking thunder and lightning. Something more respectful was needed, but he couldn't think of any word that would fit such an overwhelming man. The only events he knew comparable with what had happened were those he had learned of in religious lessons in school, making the sun stand still and those chaps that walked in the furnace. And you couldn't quite put a man who lived 3 streets away from you in an everyday suburb in that class. That was holy, and this man wasn't holy. On the other hand, he must certainly be the most wonderful man in the world. He compromised by thinking of him as the wonderful old man. Once or twice during the week he felt a little twinge in his neck, But when he examined in the mirror, there was nothing to be seen, just a clean white neck, as usual. He concluded that the little man must have gripped his neck before he struck and given a slight sprain to a small bone. You got that kind of thing sometimes at football on Saturdays, and didn't feel it until the middle of the next week. After the second twinge, he ignored it and went cheerfully about his plans for laying out his money. 9 days after his little adventure, he had his 7 o'clock tea with 2 kippers, and then went into the parlor of their little 4-room house to read the evening paper and a book he had borrowed from the free library. A book which he found hard to read, but which he wanted to read. A book on the magic of the ancients. Half an hour later, his friend Fred called. The youth's mother opened the door to him. "Hello, Fred." "Hello, Mrs. Brown. Joe in?" "Yes, he's in the parlor reading, I think." "Got a bit of news for him. You ever told you about that old man we've met in Harry's coffee shop?" "No, not that I remember." "Ah, you hear a bang just now?" "Might have. Yes, I believe I did. But there's all sorts of bangs around here. Laurie's backfiring and that. You don't notice 'em. Well, the old man's blown himself up." "Blown himself up?" "Yes, making some experiment, I suppose, and blown the house and himself all to bits. The whole front of the house, blown clean out. I just come from it. There's crowds staring at it, thousands. I thought Joe might like to come and have a look." "Ah, well, you'll find him in there. I must go get on with me washing." Fred opened the parlor door and stepped in, beginning his story with, "I say, Joe, there's a—" And then Mrs. Brown heard a scream. She bustled into the passage. "What's the matter, Fred? What's the matter?" Fred stepped back into the passage with white face and open jaws. He put out an arm. "Don't go in. Don't go. Keep out." "Why? Why? What is it?" But Fred could only say, Don't go in. His throat. The end.